a pastor, a judge, a perfect wedding. But just 24 hours later, the bride was dead. And the reason? Something so bizarre, you won't believe it. What could turn a holy man into a murderer on his wedding night? What did he discover that made him snap? This is the chilling case of Pastor John Waverly and Judge Lily Paldwell, a marriage that ended in murder just one day after it began. The ceremony was breathtaking, the vows heartfelt, and the future seemed bright. Friends, family, and the congregation rejoiced, believing this was a divine union destined for greatness. But beneath the surface, a dark secret lurked, one that would unravel in the dead of night, turning passion into terror and devotion into death. As the newlyweds entered their honeymoon suite, everything changed. A scent, an admission, a horrifying realization. It was enough to send a man of God into a downward spiral of rage, betrayal, and bloodshed. Was it madness? Or was it something more sinister? When police arrived, they found a crime scene so shocking, so unexpected, that even seasoned investigators struggled to make sense of it. The respected pastor, once a beacon of morality, now sat in stunned silence, his hands stained with the unthinkable. What pushed him to the edge? Was it self-defense, a crime of passion, or a calculated act of vengeance? The answers lie in the details, twisted, tragic, and utterly unbelievable. A wedding night turned nightmare. A love story shattered by an unthinkable truth. And a case that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about faith, trust, and the secrets we keep. Stay with us as we uncover the shocking details of this case. Because in the world of true crime, the truth is always stranger than fiction. Pastor John Waverly was more than just a preacher. He was a symbol of righteousness in Houston, Texas. At 36, he had built a devoted following at New Light Baptist Church, delivering sermons that left his congregation in awe. He was a man of discipline, a pillar of morality, and an advocate for purity. Those who knew him described him as calm, calculated, and deeply spiritual, the kind of man who believed that every step in life should be divinely ordained. 4 years he had remained single, waiting for a woman who would complement his faith, a woman he could love without question, without hesitation. And when he met Judge Sa Caldwell, it seemed like his prayers had been answered. Judge Lily Paldwell, 34, was an unshakable force in the courtroom. Her name commanded respect. She was known for her sharp legal mind, her ability to dismantle even the toughest defenses, and her unflinching pursuit of justice. Defense attorneys feared her. Colleagues admired her. To the world, she was a warrior in a black robe, but behind closed doors she was something else entirely, a woman with secrets. Despite her strong and authoritative image, Lily had been battling a private medical condition for years. She had done everything in her power to keep it hidden, maintaining the illusion of perfection. Not even Dion knew the full extent of it. But secrets, no matter how well buried, have a way of surfacing. And sometimes they surface at the worst possible time. Their love story unfolded like a modern-day fairy tale. They met at a charity gala, John, the charismatic preacher, Lily, the brilliant judge. Their chemistry was instantaneous, electric. Within 6 months they were engaged. To their friends, it seemed like a match made in heaven, a union blessed by faith and justice. On February 13, 2023, they exchanged vows in a lavish ceremony that had all the makings of a fairy tale wedding. Houston's elite were in attendance: judges, attorneys, state officials, and religious leaders. The air buzzed with excitement. The union of a pastor and a federal judge was not just a wedding, it was a statement. But beneath the surface of smiles and champagne toasts, something sinister was brewing. By the time the sun set on February 14, just 24 hours later, Judge Lily Paldwell would be dead. The honeymoon suite, once adorned with rose petals and flickering candlelight, would become a crime scene drenched in blood. And the man responsible? The same man who stood at the altar and vowed to love and protect her. But what happened in those 24 hours? What could push a man of God, a man of discipline and faith, to kill his bride on their wedding night? The answer would send shockwaves through the nation. Because the reason for the murder? Something so bizarre, so utterly unthinkable, you won't believe it. The honeymoon suite at the Grand Magnolia Hotel was the epitome of luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering Houston skyline, the plush king-size bed was dressed in the softest Egyptian cotton, and rose petals trailed from the door to the nightstand. A bottle of Dom Perignon chilled in an ice bucket nearby. Everything was perfect. But perfection is an illusion. Pastor Dion Waverly had waited his entire life for this moment. A man of faith, a leader in his church, he had spent years preaching the virtues of purity, patience, and divine timing. And now, finally, he was here, with his bride, the esteemed Judge Saw Caldwell. As she stepped out of the bathroom in a silk nightgown, he felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. This was the sacred night where two souls became one. Then the scent hit him. At first, it was faint, a peculiar odor that he dismissed as the hotel sheets, the carpet, or maybe something outside. But as Lily moved closer, the smell intensified, wrapping around him like a thick, invisible fog. His stomach churned. His chest tightened. The odor was unnatural, overpowering, and deeply unsettling. Something was wrong. Waverly's expression shifted. He tried to mask his discomfort, but Lily saw the change in his eyes. The distance. The hesitation. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because in that moment, a horrifying realization sank in. The smell was coming from her. The room felt smaller. The walls closed in. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. "Oh, what?" Lily hesitated, then let out a slow, shaky breath. It was time to tell the truth. She lowered her voice and confessed everything. Her past. Her lifestyle. Her secrets. She had been with more than 50 men, lawyers, politicians, even fellow judges. Some were mistakes. Some were reckless choices. Some were deliberate. But there was more. With each name she listed, Waverly's heart pounded harder. He could hear the blood rushing in his ears. Then the final blow. Because of her past, she had developed a chronic medical condition, one that required constant treatment. One that, even now, lingered. Waverly froze. His mind spiraled into chaos. The woman he thought was pure was nothing like he imagined. She wasn't the virtuous, untouchable queen he had envisioned. She wasn't the divine blessing he had prayed for. She was something else. His entire belief system, his faith, his discipline, the moral foundation he had built his life upon, came crashing down. Everything he stood for was a lie. He clenched his fists. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. His voice, when it finally came, was cold and sharp. "I want a divorce." Lily's breath hitched. She blinked as if she had misheard him. "John, please." "I want a divorce." The words slammed into her like a gavel striking the bench. And that's when everything changed. The judge, the woman who spent years sentencing criminals, the woman who never showed weakness in a courtroom, begged. "Please, baby, please, don't do this." She reached for him, but he recoiled. He shook her shoulders. No movement. He pressed 2 fingers to her throat. No pulse. She was gone. A deep, guttural noise escaped his throat, a sound somewhere between a sob and a prayer. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. They were supposed to be celebrating their love tonight. Instead, he had killed her. At 2:42 a.m., the Houston Police Department received a chilling 911 call. The voice on the other end was shaky, breathless. "I need help. I think my wife she's not breathing. There's blood. Oh God." The dispatcher's voice was calm, methodical. "Sir, I need you to take a deep breath." "What happened?" A long pause. Then, "We argued. She fell. I didn't mean to. I swear to God, I didn't mean to." His voice cracked on the last word. The dispatcher stayed on the line as officers were dispatched to the Grand Magnolia Hotel. Waverly didn't try to run. He didn't try to hide the evidence. When the police arrived, he was exactly where he had been for the last 30 minutes, sitting on the floor, staring at his wife's motionless body, his face wet with tears. Blood was smeared across his hands. His white dress shirt was stained deep crimson. Detectives Brooks and Ramirez were the first to step into the room. They had seen plenty of crime scenes before. But this one was different. Judge Lily Caldwell wasn't just any victim. She was one of their own, a woman who sat behind the bench, handing down life sentences to criminals. And now here she was, a victim of domestic homicide. Detective Ramirez's voice was low, measured. "Pastor Waverly, can you tell us what happened?" Waverly swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. His voice was hoarse. "We fought. I tried to leave, but she wouldn't let me. She hit me. I pushed her back and she fell." His voice broke again. Detective Brooks narrowed his eyes. "That's all? You just pushed her?" A long silence. Then, a barely perceptible nod. "All right, Pastor. Stand up." Waverly complied, moving as if he were in a trance. As Ramirez turned him around and placed the cold steel handcuffs around his wrists, a single tear rolled down his cheek. "Dion Waverly, you are under arrest for the murder of Saw Caldwell." Click, click. The handcuffs locked into place. Waverly didn't resist. He didn't say another word. As he was escorted out of the hotel, Flashing red and blue lights painted his face in sharp streaks of color. Paparazzi had already gathered, cameras flashing, reporters shouting. The world was about to find out the shocking truth. The holy man had become a killer. And there would be no redemption for this sin. The case exploded in the media. Pastor kills his judge wife 24 hours after their wedding. Betrayal, secrets, and blood. The dark story of Lily Caldwell's murder. Holy man or monster? Pastor Waverly faces life in prison. The trial began 6 months later. The prosecution argued that this wasn't just an accident. It was a crime of passion, a deliberate act fueled by rage and betrayal. They had evidence. Hotel security footage showed Waverly pacing the hallways for nearly an hour before calling 911. The autopsy revealed that Lily's injuries were more severe than a simple fall. There were bruises on her arms, scratches on her face, and a blunt force trauma wound that suggested she had been struck, not just pushed. Forensic specialists found blood spatter patterns inconsistent with Waverly's version of events. The defense, however, painted a different picture. Waverly was a devoted man of God, a man who had never shown any signs of violence before that night. His lawyers argued that he was provoked, cornered, pushed to the edge, that he never meant to kill her, that it was an accident. But the jury wasn't convinced. The evidence was damning. The motive was clear. And after only 7 hours of deliberation, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty. Pastor John Waverly was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the murder of his wife, Judge Lily Caldwell. As he was led away in cuffs, he looked out at the crowd gathered in the courtroom. His congregation, his followers, his believers. Many of them had once called him a man of God. Now they called him a murderer. And as he disappeared through the doors of the courtroom, one question remained unanswered. Did he really lose control? Or had he always been capable of killing?